This is Melissa King, and also known me as Lissa King, and I'm about to live stream. As I've been trying to tell you, that members of our tribal families and others of their criminal and drug using associates we have been subjugated to, and they have infiltrated and been an unlawful governing body through captivity of us and our spouse's child by their crew who are convicted in Eastern and Western District Court, have drug manufacture and child neglect and other histories. And together, okay? And so they had, like my grandmother Lorraine Howe Mongold's works. You can see her book. That's why I showed you on the Melissa King, Madison, Wisconsin Facebook with me at the nitty gritty, and the pink balloon tied to my glass on my bigamist, rape, rental marriage to that their McGraw-Himes incested. So what they're doing, including their Ho Chunk convicted criminal faction that includes the Decorah, Perez, and Greens, including Mary, aka Lynn M. Green, state of Wisconsin, and Dane County Social Services, Chicago U, her relatives, Steph Green, tenant resource and joining forces for families at Truex, um, and their Perez's. They've been drug trafficking with their McGraw Wyandottes that include and her husband Albert, her children, and they've forcibly involved their grandchildren. Her sister Nola Stephenson Irby, current last in Hope, Murfreesboro, and Winnie, Arkansas, with their Arnold D. Darnell, his cousin Eugene Darnell Ho Chunk from Harding Street in Monona, at La Follette with their McGraws, and also cousin Eugene at Texarkana, Texas, with their relative Larry Coleman. Lorna Stephenson McGraw Glarwood, her sister Clara Stephenson Barton Landon, Dodgeville, Iowa County, her brother Jim Stephenson, and Nola Stephenson Irby have had motorhome drug operations. Her sons Ryan Lee McGraw was drug trafficking in the Air Force. Him and Alan Rick McGraw, that is not my spouse. And they've been taking unlawful policing and court actions upon themselves by their criminal judge associates and so forth. We have a system and court infiltration by them, misusing our resources and programs that my grandmother and other tribal family members put together. Okay, so they are having an unlawful entity, and Ryan Lee McGraw and Alan Rick McGraw, who are represented by Mandel and Poo Poo Jenny Ginsburg, Safe Harbor, that has the rape tape, incest tape of their rape daughter with MPD's Koval, as well as of the caught girl that they were rolling right by being held at the Green Mother, and their sex that they set up, letting them run wild at the bus stop and elsewhere, were holding captive on their porch, and she was on the phone, and them to help us are refusing to take reports and are involved in their threats and crimes and unlawful policing actions. See what Barbara Good, and Alan Rick McGraw, he was married to Tyrana Dare's aunt, and Mosier knows this because he married and divorced them, Professor Pervert Matthew Mosier and his crooked father Daniel and Shelley Gaylord. Because Mosier married my husband and I, who is Daniel Warren Banks, White Mountain Apache, and his father's brother, his uncle, was also Leech Lake, relatives of the Curdiels. And you see my drug manufacturer Armstrong, Teresa J. and her aunt Cinda Armstrong Maynard, June Garvin's coke buddy, with their Garvins and Andy and his relatives and the rest of them. Yeah. They are making illegal umbrage. They're an unlawful governing body. They've been engaging in theft and extortion and fraud their whole lives, and they use and manufacture drugs together. Okay, so you have an illegal convicted alliance that goes against ours and the whole chunk, that also, the whole chunk nation and all forms of law. Mosier would know that you can't marry off someone else's wife that you married, and that Judge Smith and all the rest of them support the marriage, including Ozanne, but yet your drug manufacturing tribal cousins with other convicted criminals who you're using as agents under fighting drugs and crime that are actually the cartel, um, including in Costa Rica and Lee and Broward County, Florida, with Arnold Darnell and Wileen McGraw. Um, in Vegas, they have something to do with the Charlottesburg and the Red Lake, and San Diego with their friend April Hack Walker and Jim Green and Linda Benson and all them, and elsewhere too. They have illegal Enbridge. That's what cousin Gene is working on right now in Texarkana and minding their drug operations with the sheriff at the diamond mine in Arkansas. And their motor home and criminal operations with their Perez. And I told you the other side is Arnold D. Darnell, Roy C. Darnell's children with Benora Rita Little Sam Darnell Ho Chunk. That includes Gail Darnell and her repeat sexual, her relative Larry Lemaire, and her Section 8 Tom Conrad relative of, because Garvin's Darnell's, Winishek's Lemaire, Conrad, and their Red Lake Larry Lemaire connection to their Red Lake Brent and Deputy Fowler, their uncle Officer Detective Hendrickson and his female VA doctor wife, Linda, that you saw coordinating with them and through my VA care at the housing my uncles built, and them and my mother Jane M. Mongolds, and Ken Noddy and Chris Ring, Sally and Lori, in various nursing and drugs and massage and hypnotism and so forth with their Selena Fox and Deputy and Libby Schmidt. So that's our system crew and our social justice crew of addict racketeering bums whose livelihood is based off children. So they have illegal infrac. That's them running their drugs with their Davis and so forth, trying to force the shutdown of the Toma VA and our King Nursing Home and compromising its functionality illegally, just like before with Sandy Winishek and Ken Black, whose relative Aaron is a crackhead youth worker at Truax with June and the rest of them, and they have Deputy Jim England, Sauk County Board crony of Janet Decora Fundmakers, that was behind the dirt job on Spencer Black and blockading and unlawfully removing and installing their criminal associates like Spencer Black installing and so forth. That's who's after Larry Hogger, John Lynch, Anthony Hardy, and all Brenda Conkle and all the others by their criminals. And you can clearly see this because Janet M. Decora Fundmaker, if you look at her Whole Chunk Nation complaint, and you can see the news archives for all of her children, including meth with Perez's and having their Summer Decora Fundmaker and Roxanne Decora meth head from Carling here, having Tara Cloud, Ashley Amethyst Fundmaker, who's Summer's daughter, captive in Eau Claire, trying to set up a meth house with her Perez cousins. You saw Camilla stealing from the school district and so forth. You see, that's them running their crimes because they intend to put their Hickston Sand Frack, It's a Grabbies and Lands, and Henning Jr. Garvin is on the board of WEC Energy for all of our energy companies. And Castle Rock Gorman with Pam Gorman, you saw Alan Rick McCraw with my autistic rape child in the car, trying to under the influence and trying to deliver their drugs and pick up drugs from Aunt Clara and getting picked up by Mineral Point. That Professor Pervert Mosier, who also has our Judicare as Sunshine and Lemieux and others. And for those that don't know, Judicare is where all of our legal programs are funded through and allotted. So we don't have any representation at all. We're having our constitutional citizens' rights deprived of us, and we're having convicted in Eastern and Western District Court, convicted racketeer and drug manufacturers posing as an unlawful entity and holding our children captive among their associates to assign themselves as our authorities. And you saw Tony Robinson, East High, that's where the Davises and the Greens of 4102 St. Paul Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin 53714, including their drug dealer brother Jim Green, that's the front man for Gorman. Okay, and you saw Mary and Stephanie Green, aka Lynn M. Green, when Mary did her trespassing in a fraudulent sexual assault lawsuit and reversed her name. Them and the Greens have been long-term criminals together, and we've been fronting their drug addicts. You know, we've been forced to support them and their Blues and their Carters and the rest of them. The Carters are the McGraw Wyandotte in-laws, Al and Rick McGraw, that Mosier married and divorced. That you see living at and manufacturing and using drugs with Lorna Stephenson McGraw Garwood at her 3507 Mercy Road address, and lately at the trailer she inherited from that woman at the Spay and Neuter Clinic, Park Terrace on the north side, that you saw them and their Cisneros trying to blow up the neighbor's trailer. See, now Stephanie and all them, and Andy Hyde and Tim Brewer, and Andy's ex-wife that was his future wife, and their Rebecca Bradley coke-sniffing group at Chicago U, are now trying to steal our resources, profiteering and abusing and infiltrated in our social programs and taking down our communities. And like Oscar Mayer and Kip and so forth, and them and their Fowler Hendrickson, Ring Red Lake, and Larry Lemaire's Section 8 Tom Conrad's, who, by the way, Detective Linda's wife, niece or daughter, married one of my grandfather's Roy King Red Lake relatives and was a school cop, and them and their whole chunk and Wyandottes and their Lacourdiels were manufacturing drugs there too and running criminal operations and threatening and murdering children, including targeting the Menominee and Red Lake and other police chiefs, and including repeatedly targeting the Ho Chunk Nation's authorities too. And that about Janet M. Decora, fund maker, in her Ho Chunk Nation complaint, where it mentions my relative's uncle Gene Gaylord Thompson's and relative Wilma. He was a Vietnam Navy vet, and Harry Whitehorse and Ken and the others had to remove them when their criminal reign was done and had blockaded themselves in and looted the casino gift shop of its stock, robbing the nation, and barricaded themselves. And they had to go in and remove them shooting, including Robert Funmaker Jr. and his brother Howard, mentioned in Janet's Ho Chunk Nation firing. They had to hard extract them, and they tried to burn down the casino. And you see all their arson and insurance frauds too. Fraudulent workers' comp, fraudulent insurance, fraudulent court judgments with Andy at EEOC, Community Block Grant, United Refugee, Badger Care. Yeah, with their friend Mosier and Shelley Gaylord, and we have Rebecca Bradley on the. That's Andy Height's in-law. And we have Andy's Caravello relative at Facilities Management. And I was showing you Antonia and Dwayne Caravello and Gloria Caravello Woodward Lyncher Emilio and their McGraw Wyandottes on 4010 Laurie Circle, Madison 53714, 154 Belmont Street behind Belmont Nursing Home there. Antonia and Dwayne and Gloria Caravello Woodward Lyncher Emilio and their pervert J. Emilio, Michael, and Richard, and their sons, Jason and Justin, Jim and them, you know, that Nick Emilio and DAV used to have to rescue their victims, luring children, incest, and so forth, with Larry Hogger and Jim and John Lynch and others. And that's they're from Richland Center, and that, you know, saw them and Pam Gorman too, and her minister father, and all these ministers, Selena Fox, that's facial justice and all of that are just a bunch of addicts and racketeers, and it's a front. And I tried to warn all of you, and you see that them and Amy, Sean, Jack Strunk, and now Amy using Chase Strunk as Lane McGraw is using his sons, including the one that had fetal alcohol syndrome from Catherine Ann High McGraw's drug use, and that they fed acid to, living in a driveway in that fraud drug home set up as my husband with my mother in their arms of them that aren't, and molesting her, their rape daughter. So this is what you're dealing with in there at MG&E. You see Professor again at Cornell, UW Law, Assistant DA. You saw him and Ozanne and them trying to lie and make up that they were overloaded as they were letting their criminals out on controlled crime sprees, including Sean Strunk, so that they could pass on their false prosecution and fraudulent proceedings and extort false judgments and histories for their takeover, to force us under their control, like their Tolarian and abuse of our licenses and so forth, making up their police extortion and murder like Tony, and that they tried to do with me with Hendrickson too. And those are my rape children that they made through captivity of Shelley Gaylord, and I'm extorting my grandma's clinic with my mother and cousins and their ring friends. They're criminal, degenerate associates who have laid siege and been a forcible governing and fraudulent body, robbing Indian and other monies just like the tribe and the businesses, including their buddy Nick at the cash store and Associated Bank, and their buddy Rosa Perez here. But now look at Janet Decorah Fundmakers Ho Chunk. They were forced to hard shut down their homes when they persisted. Arnie for collecting together at Victoria Lane with his sister Gail and their McGraws, including Dion McGraw, Xander Meekum on Independence, when Gail and Johnny Abeda and Arnie and Jim Green in the duplex on 2709 and 2805 Victoria Lane, and in Monona and in Stoughton and in, different states and so forth, with their Stephenson relatives and their Citizen Action Kane relatives and Dr. and Molly and Michelle Kane. So here they are again, displacing and looting and moving us into their toxic waste heaps like Royster Clark, where Andy and Judge Gaylord are living, and she's the one arranging the homo-pedo incest guardianships for the control of them after they kidnap and violate. And blues are the ones violating, and you see their criminals stalking us, and the police and the judges denying us legitimate court protection and protection orders from their convicted criminals that they're letting out, and that they threaten and they do that and send them after us, and we're literally on our own. And Koval keeps suppressing complaints, and I have you retaliating, Koval, besides hiding that tape. I have your false arrest after the request for release of information showing these crimes, and you leaving us in endangering circumstances and being part of that, pregnant with their sexual assault child they arranged through my VA care and at CDA and Truax with June, and depriving of utilities, kidnapping, and in the winter, and pregnant in a cast, and taking my veterans benefits. And you're denying us our legitimate benefits, and strong arm robbing false bills out of our accounts, and in some cases triple billing, and then closing our accounts because you're causing overdrafts and having us to have to take payday loans because of your crimes that shouldn't be allowed to go on. But there you are, Janet Decorah Fundmaker, being caught by Robert Fundmaker Jr. that you shot, not using your second chance to clean up your act and be functional human beings and pay the taxes on your house and that you didn't work for, and to pay the workers on your house and so forth. And instead, here's you and Danny Perez, the raper and coke charges from your Milwaukee there, that they're all stacked up with your Gary Thundercloud Milwaukee PD, and that Summer and all the rest of them were camped out, peddling our children with the Carters too. Yeah, you're a gang, you're MS-13, you're Sinaloa drug traffickers. So there you are, planting evidence, blockading and making death threats too to the Green Deers, blockading duly elected officials, and planting evidence like you do of your crimes that you attribute to others or try to imply or extort settlements under threat when you're holding their family members hostage, and directing law enforcement to threaten and to carry out your contract killings if necessary. Just like you did with Braden, Anthony, and Tyler Turnbull. And then after murdering Braden, then you made false child molester charges not just against Anthony, the grieving father, but also against the 17-year-old living son, so you could see if he could get thrown in prison, get the shit raped out of him, and beat the hell up and maybe murdered because of you. So that's how so you shouldn't be free to be roaming around extorting others and things. Right. Okay. Okay, we're done. Okay.